picture ní àkúrẹ́ but ojú ti ń dọ̀yẹ̀ but mo ṣàrántí.
Gentlemen, may we rise for the national anthem. Thereafter, University of Ibadan anthem. Please take your seat. Vice Chancellor, University of Ibadan, other principal officers of our university, our keynote speakers, the session speakers, President, International Union on Food Science and Technology, Deans of Faculties and of Students, Directors of Academic Institute Centers, our distinguished honoree and his spouse, members of Senate, ESO Department, family of very distinguished Professor Ogugua Charles Aworh, mentees of very distinguished Professor O.C. Aworh, staff and students of Ibadan Grammar School, staff and students of the University of Ibadan, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Council, Senate, congregation, management, staff, and students of the University of Ibadan, especially welcome you all to this valedictory symposium in honor of very distinguished Professor Prof Aworh. Today's symposium is themed the role of lesser known profs in addressing food and nutrition security in Nigeria. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the man we are celebrating today is the George Montaros Distinguished Professor, Flour Mills Food Research Center, Department of Food Technology, Faculty of Technology, University of Ibadan. He is a distinguished fellow of many international academic and professional bodies, a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Food Science and Technology and the International Academy of Food Science and Technology, and the recipient of the Lifetime Award of the Nigerian Institute of Food Science and Technology. Indeed, our celebrant is a very distinguished Nigerian and insatiable collector of awards and prizes all over the world. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Professor Prof Aworh. We are led to this ceremony by a distinguished Nigerian, a chartered chemist, former Dean, Faculty of Science of our University, former Director of Special Duties of the same university, former immediate past Deputy Vice Chancellor, University of Ibadan, a Google Scholar, and by the special grace of God, the 13th Vice Chancellor of our university, Professor Kayode Oyebode Adebowale, MNI FAS, being ably represented by another chartered chemist and Provost of the Productive College of our university, Professor Jonathan Babalola, and the chairman of this event. I also present to us, in a special manner, our keynote speaker, a professor of food science, former vice chancellor, Best University of Technology, Ota, Ogun State, Nigeria, very distinguished Professor Isaac Adebayo Adeyemi. On a lighter note, he is the son of the soil, and beyond that, his father was the first person to buy television in Nigeria in 1959. Am I right, sir? God bless you, sir. I also present to you, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our session speaker number one, by order in which they appear to me. I do not mean to disrespect the other symposium speaker. I present to you a professor of food microbiology and technology with research emphasis on non-acidic and alkaline fermented foods in the University of Ibadan, a Google Scholar and Scopus Scholar, Professor Abiodun I. Sani. He is also a distinguished alumnus of this university. Yes, Professor Adeyemi too is also a UIT. He obtained the 4th degree in the University of Ibadan. I also present to you especially the second symposium, a professor of food science and technology with a sharp focus on food, crop production, food science, and agricultural technology. She is also a Google Scholar, engineer, Professor Ademobi Taiwo. UI club may not be enough, but she's from Obafemi Awolowo University. I also present to you, and I go through the chairman and the vice chancellor of this university to present to you the registrar, University of Ibadan, Mrs. Olubunmi Ufaloye, being ably represented by the deputy registrar, vice chancellor's office, Mr. Oluwole Dada. and our host, the Dean Faculty of Technology, Professor Olaosebikan Fagolujo. When you find a man succeeding, somebody's behind him, somebody's in front of him, somebody's beside, sideways, and that person is not that person that Mama Prof Aworh. I think we can do better for us. Today is your day, man. Especially Tertiary Education Trust Fund is represented at this event by the Director Monitoring and Evaluation Department of that body. I present to you, especially Architect Babatunde Olajide. Joining us online is the President, International Union of Food Science and Technology, very distinguished Professor V. Prakash. Thank you. Especially, I also present to you one of our living legends in this university, Venerable Professor Babajide Lucas. My name is Olatunji Oladejo, Directorate of Public Communication, Office of the Vice Chancellor of your university, my university, their university, our own university, the best university in Nigeria, the best in West Africa, seventh in Africa, and one of the most prestigious universities in the world, the University of Ibadan. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I now have the singular honor of inviting the Vice Chancellor, University of Ibadan, and Chairman of this remarkable occasion, Professor Kayode Adebowale, being ably represented by Professor Jonathan Babalola, Provost of the Polytechnic College of the University of Ibadan. The Vice Chancellor, sir.
The celebrant of today, Professor and Mrs. Aworh, the keynote speaker, the symposium presenters, Professor Sonny, Professor Taiwo, the registrar, the Dean of Tech, and the representative of Tech Fund. I know if I want to continue, it will take all my time. So all courses duly extended. It's a pleasure to be here today. I know that if Professor Aworh had not been the man he is, many of us will not be here today. There are people who left the university system. To come back is a problem. Some will even manage to come back. When they enter this way, the other people will go the other way. And some will even just send notes. People will say, who knows him? Not to talk of somebody saying, come to this gathering. If he has not been good to us, we will all not be here. I want to thank God for the life you live. I want to thank God for the people you have impacted. I know for mentees to come together and ask department, let's celebrate our supervisor, our mentor, is because he has really done a lot. I want to thank God for your life once again. I just looked and I saw Professor Lucas. No, we are all masquerade now. You hardly recognize who is who. When I saw Professor Taiwo, I didn't know she was the person for a long time. I could recognize Professor Sanji because of his hair and his head. But I also recognized Professor Officer. I saw her, she entered somewhere. And somebody said, this man doesn't look like 70. So I want to welcome you all to this celebration. And my prayer is that you all be celebrated. You know, when you rejoice, people are rejoicing. Your own joy will surely come. I want to thank people who have joined us online. We are here to celebrate a great man. He never taught me any subject, but he has taught me many things. Somebody said, that is, I did something. Don't worry, I did chemistry. He has taught me many things. The time he was at Central Research Lab, you know, when you listen to people who are great, there's no way you will not get one thing or the other from them whenever they talk. He has affected so many lives. And it's a privilege that we are all here to witness this today. And we do pray that the rest of your life you will live in good health. You will live to satisfy the purpose of God for your life. And you still impact more lives. So I welcome you all. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, sir. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, very distinguished Professor Prof Aworh is diligent and selfless. These are the virtues that he exhibits effortlessly, not for any personal gain, but for service to God and humanity. And to honor very distinguished Professor Aworh this morning, we have students of Ibadan Grammar School, of which he is also a distinguished alumnus. Wherever you are, students, Ibadan Grammar School, can you stand up for recognition as we put our hands together for them? You too shall be praised. Thank you. Please take your seat. Now I invite one of the mentees of Professor Aworh, Professor Oshodansi, for the Department of Science and Technology, Futa, to please step forward and present the citation on our distinguished celebrant.
The Vice Chancellor, the celebrant, Professor O.C. Aworh and Mrs. Aworh, the keynote speaker, other people on the high table, all protocols duly observed. It is my pleasure to be reading citation on Professor Charles Aworh this morning. Please, sir, permit me to request that you stand up as I read the citation. Professor Charles Aworh is the George Kumatoros Distinguished Professor, Flour Mills Food Research Center, Department of Food Technology, University of Ibadan, a Fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Food Science and Technology, and the International Academy of Food Science and Technology, and a recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award of the Nigerian Institute of Food Science and Technology 2014. Professor Aworh was born on 20th May 1951 in Lagos to the Aworh family of Umudaike Quarters, Asaba, Delta State, Nigeria. He had his primary school education at St. James's School, Okebola and Alafia Institute, Mokola, Ibadan, from 1957 to 1963. From 1964 to 1968, he attended the famous Ibadan Grammar School, where he obtained the West African School Certificate in the first division in 1968 with the best overall result in that school. The following year, he was admitted into the University of Ibadan by concessional entrance examination. A university scholar, Professor Aworh graduated with Bachelor of Science honors in agricultural biochemistry and nutrition in second class upper division in 1973 and was awarded the May and Baker Prize for the best student in the Department of Animal Science. In September 1974, he enrolled as a graduate student under the federal government scholarship program at Cornell University, Ithaca, New York, United States of America, where he obtained Masters of Science and PhD degrees in Food Science and Technology in 1976 and 1978, respectively. He joined the services of the University of Ibadan in July 1978 as a lecturer grade 2 and became Professor of Food Technology in 1988. A foremost researcher and prolific author, he has about 120 scientific publications, excluding technical reports and monographs, and has produced over 120 masters and 17 PhDs, with many of his former students occupying top positions in industry, government, and academia within and outside the country, including head of department, dean of faculty, associate professors, and former vice chancellor. As mentioned earlier, this is not written, I am one of them, and by God's grace, I'm the Dean, School of Agriculture and Agricultural Technology, Federal University of Technology, Ibadan. The first female Dean in 40 years. He has held many top administrative positions at the University of Ibadan, including head of the Department of Food Technology for 3 times, chairman, Senate Curriculum Committee, chairman, General Studies Program, and Hallmaster, Sultan Bello Hall. He was the University Public Orator in 1997 and 2006, and he served on several committees of Senate and Council, including Senate Curriculum, Appointment and Promotions, Procurement Planning, Staff Disciplinary and Honorary Degrees Committees, and the Student Welfare Board. He was the chairman of the Committee for Administration of the Multidisciplinary Central Research Laboratory, supported by MacArthur Foundation from 2008 to 2014, and provided leadership in the conception, equipping, and formulation of management policies for the laboratory, including development of operational and financial plans for sustainability. The laboratory is equipped with modern, state-of-the-art equipment for cutting-edge research in the chemical, biological, and agricultural and life sciences. Professor Aworh has worldwide experience in food research, consultancy, and public service. He has carried out several major consultancy assignments and research contracts for governments, the private sector, and international organizations, including the joint FAO-IAFA Division for Nuclear Techniques in Food Agriculture, Vienna, Austria. He was a full-time consultant in sustainable community development to Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited, Warri, from May 1999 to December 2000 on leave from the University of Ibadan. a recipient of several prestigious international research fellowships, including the Royal Society Northfield Foundation Fellowship, the Canadian International Development Agency, Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council Fellowship, and Alexander von Humboldt Research Fellowship. Professor Aworh was at various times research fellow or professor at the Proctor Department of Food Science, University of Leeds, UK, the Department of Food Science, University of British Columbia, Vancouver, Canada, and the Department of Biotechnology and the Institute of Technical Biocatalysis of Hamburg University of Technology, Germany. A member of several professional bodies and learned societies, including the Honor Society of Parker Field and the Institute of Food Technologists, USA, Professor Aworh was chairman of the body of fellow of the Nigerian Institutes of Food Science and Technology between 2008 and 2013. Editor-in-Chief, Nigerian Food Journal, between 1986 and 1989. He was elected to membership of the American Association for the Advancement of Science in 1996 and the New York Academy of Science in 1997. Professor Aworh was the only African inducted into the prestigious International Academy of Food Science and Technology, the global focus for food science excellence, at the 16th World Food Congress held in Iguazu Falls, Brazil in 2012, and was recently appointed Chairman, TechFund, Chair Technical Advisory Group. If we are to continue writing and telling about Professor Aworh, we may not even leave this place on time. Meet Professor Ogugua Charles Aworh.
Thank you so much, Professor Oluwatoyin Osholansi, a distinguished mentee of our distinguished mentor. Can we put our hands together once again for our distinguished Professor Oluwatoyin Osholansi? You are representing us well here. Thank you. Professor Charles Aworh, Indigenous Commandos, distinguished professor, Flower Mills Food Research Center, Department of Food Technology, Faculty of Technology, University of Ibadan. And that body is being represented at this memorable event by Mr. Rufus Adenipekun, the Finance Director of Flower Mills of Nigeria PLC. Can we put our hands together as I invite you to the high table? To the high table, sir. Professor Ogugua Charles Aworh, in all you do, you have shown excellence and diligence, and you are celebrated today. I join your admirers all over the world to congratulate you once again, sir. Vice Chancellor, University of Ibadan, and Chairman of this event, let me now invite our keynote speaker, Professor Isaac Adebayo, Adeyemi for his address. The keynote speaker, sir.
The Vice Chancellor, people represented by the Provost, the PG College, Professor Aworh. The celebrant of today and his amiable wife, you are recognized. I stand on the existing protocol. Just some few years ago, a young man, right here on this campus, perhaps I have forgotten, but I will remind you, tapped me at the back. That was in the Department of Animal Science, and then those of us in the option of Agriculture and Nutrition. He tapped me at the back and said, I learned that you work with Dr. Odupai, who was then my supervisor, and that got my thesis entitled Effect of Breed and Stage of Plantation on fluoride, sodium, manganese, zinc, and copper content of cow's milk. And that his own project will just be a step after mine. And that I'd like to see what I've done in the past. And I gave him that list. That's some few years ago. That was about 48 years ago. And that has been the journey between Charles and I. And what brought us closer together is the family of NIST, the Nigerian Institute of Food Science and Technology. The Bible says, tears thou a man, diligent, stand before kings, not before free men. That is Charles for you. As you join the group, you are welcome to that group. Those of us of the time. But my prayer for you is that it shall be unto life and not unto death. Amen. The Lord will continue to make you a vessel of honor. Amen. Not only in His vineyard, but in the corporate world. Amen. The best is just beginning. You know, I'm not a pastor, I don't look at the one. At the Cana of Galilee, at the wedding, yes, Cana, not the pastor. They then accused the man who organized the event. They are bringing out the best wine at the end. Charles, the best is yet to come from you. And the Lord will continue to give that grace, to give the best, and the best shall it be in Jesus' name. Madam, congratulations. Not behind, but beside every successful man, there's always a righteous woman. And you've been a righteous woman, and you remain so by the grace of God. Now to my presentation, titled Food, Industrial and Health Potential of Undigitalized and Lesser Known Indigenous and Young Food Crops. I'm sure this seminar or symposium is being organized just to acknowledge, not only to acknowledge Prof, but also its area of core interest and publication. So I'll just start it on the surface. Next, down the outline, you look at neglected and underutilized lesser known crops. What are the features? Next, these are domesticated plant species that have been used for centuries or more. At times, they are referred to as orphan, abandoned, lost, underutilized, local, traditional crops. They are sometimes unrecognized. That is, their nutritional value sometimes not recognized. There's poor consumer awareness. Then there's also reputational problems. Next, please. Now, what are the features of underutilized crops? 1. Linkage with the cultural heritage of their places of origin. Local and traditional crops. Weak or no formal seed supply systems. They receive little attention from research and extension services, research workers and extension services, including policy and decision makers, donors, technology providers, and consumers. And some of these crops may be highly nutritious and will have medicinal properties or other multiple uses. So these are some of the features of the type of crops that we are looking into at this symposium. Then what are the constraints? The constraints include limited availability of germplasm, lack of technical information, lack of national policy, lack of interest by researchers, agriculturists and extension workers, and lack of producer interest. When you look at most of our conventional food crops, like maize, cassava, sorghum, you discover that these underutilized crops are not given the importance they deserve. They are not. So in this brief keynote address, I will look at some of the selected underutilized Nigerian food crops. But my own emphasis will be on their utilization as a food scientist, and also we'll look at some of their health potential. Then I'll wrap it up with that. There's no way we want to cover all the underutilized crops in a symposium like this. And that's why I've selected maybe two from each group that I'm familiar with. Some I've worked with in the past, some will rely on the valuable information in literature. Now, for roots and tubers, if you talk about roots and tubers in this country, what comes straight to your mind is yam or cassava. But you never think about cocoyam, butter yam. I could recollect some years back, even as recent as 2-3 years ago, I was asking for one of my children, are you familiar with Isuru? I was asking for scholar. Do you know Isuru? It has no meaning. Isuru? It has no meaning. Cocoyam, Obura, and Kwam. It has no meaning. All what they know is what? Normal yam. Normal yam. Then for cereals, maize and sorghum. Mainly maize, most cases right down south. You talk about amala, the only thing they remember is efforted, just the leaves. Nothing about the seed. Then finger millet or fonio, which is more common in the sub-Saharan aspect, more or less in the north. Now these are some of the photographs. That's your cocoyam and your watayam this side. Next. Then underutilized roots and tubers as industrial raw material. Next. Now, cocoyam and watayam, just like your normal yam, you can either process them into flour or starch. And your flour or starch are valuable materials in the baking industry. Okay, either as composite flour. In the last couple of years, they are all used to cassava bread, isn't it? But it's not 100% cassava bread. That's the one between, I'm happy that flour makes the same. In the maximum 10 to 15% addition, substitution. And the main focus has been cassava. And that has made the price of cassava, or even gari, to go up. In the past, gari used to be poor man's food, Is it a poor man's food now? No, it's no longer. The reason being that there is a sort of competition between industrial usage and food or consumption purposes. So, Whereas there are other substitutes, like cocoyam and water yam, where you can make the flour or starch from these crops. In the past, we did some years back in Israel, I did some work on cocoyam flour and starch in bread making, as well as biscuits. When you produce what we call by depositing method, you make cocoyam biscuit. Very nice, beautiful. It has a very nice texture because of the nature and properties of cocoyam starch. And the level of, if you are using as composite, up to 20-25%, you still get something meaningful for bread manufacture. And in the course of that work, we did a sort of soil through from this panel. That is, we had a questionnaire asking those who participated in that study, have you ever consumed cocoyam separated? Almost 99% said no. Now the product that you are consuming, I think it was cake and biscuit. The product that you are consuming is made of cocoyam starch, or now if it has to be offered for sale, will you buy it? And almost 80%, based on the quality of the product, almost 80% said yes, we will buy it. So what are we saying? In essence, what we are underutilized, if well processed and incorporated into a normal food regime, to still be what acceptable. They can also be used as raw materials for winning food manufacturing. Mind you, all these they have to be processed, because as we mentioned earlier, later on, there are some certain anti-nutritional factors to work. Then you can make your instant pando flour. Years back, all we are used to is pando yam flour, isn't it? Even in most supermarkets, now even outside the country, you find pando potato. So what can you have pando cocoyam or pando water yam? And it's feasible. Even in literature, some works have been done wherein pre-gelatinized instant flour from cocoyam and water yam are produced experimentally and could also be commercialized. They can make chips, syrup, and starch production. Also, from information and literature where we have physical and functional properties for industrial application. So in essence, what are we saying? That sources of starch or even flour for food and industrial purposes could be cocoyam, water yam, or any other starch-based material. Next, please. What of amaranth? Amaranth and finger millet are referred to as pseudo cereal or false cereal or cereal-like. They have almost the same properties as maize, sorghum, or even your normal millet, but don't have the same property as that of wheat, because wheat is unique because of its gluten content. But your amaranth and finger millet have those properties. Okay? And they also found applications in the cereal-based industries, breakfast cereal, bakery products and healthy snacks, winning foods, ogi manufacture. You can make functional beverages like kono. Kono, you normally use your normal millet. Some will use, apart from millet, some will use sorghum. Okay? But you can also make your kono. In fact, the import of, I will mention this under ogi manufacture. You can also make your ogi from amaranth. Let me share an experience we had when I was supervising the students. I think that was Sadia, now Dr. Zitawala Raho. Is she here? Yes. Oh, okay. She was working with me on amaranth ogi, and that's how you have to understand the properties of the food material you are using for a specific process and food product. She was working on amaranth ogi, And at the time, she was pressing, using the usual muslin cloth to get the cake out. She discovered that as she was pressing, the starch was coming out with the souring water. She couldn't obtain the cake. And she looked depressed that day. Having spent almost a week, now the final step was to get the cake and then dry it. And I was there in the lab. I was equally disturbed. Then an idea occurred to me. Wait a minute. That's what they call freeze dry, isn't it? Unfortunately, the laboratory freeze dryer we had there in Lake October lab was faulty. What shall we do? Then I said, it's not just occurred to me. Freeze, dry. If you freeze, then you dry. I said, put it in the freeze dryer. We'll come back tomorrow morning. The next day, I just cooked just a small quantity and put it in the dryer. Set it at around 40 degrees Celsius. Lo and behold, by the evening time, we had a very beautiful powdered product. And that was the process we used to obtain the ogi powder. And when the ogi sample was subjected to taste panel analysis, in terms of flavor, texture, it was much more acceptable than the maize ogi. Reason being that the amaranth has very fine starch structure. That's number one. Number two, in terms of flavor, because of some phytochemicals and anthocyanins, colorants, whatever, they imparted that flavor into amaranth oil, which means it can even be more nutritious and it has higher protein content than your maize oil. So the question is, but then when you use amaranth flour for bread making, we did some work earlier before that. The only thing that negates the amaranth, the species or the variety we used, was the color of the amaranth seed. It produced a dark colored crumb, okay, which more or less reduced the acceptability. But the impact of that is this. If you are to use the amaranth grain for bread manufacture, it means we have to think of a different variety of species that has less brownish color. The typical amaranth seed we have in this part of the country, but they are only used for vegetables, is the brownish type. So for bread making, if you are to incorporate that into flour, then you have to think of a different variety. In some parts of Latin American countries, they are used to amaranth as a component of their daily food. So amaranth or sugar millet can be used as winning food for manufacture, beverages. In the brewing industry, alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages can always germinate or more, just like your barley or your maize. And then manufacture of convenient food products using extrusion technology. Luckily, in your department here, the only functional extruder I'm told in the entire Africa is here in this department. They put the courtesy of the flour mill. And also, your amaranth and sugar millet can be used as an ingredient for livestock feed manufacture. Next, please. The legumes. For legumes, we're all used to maybe cowpea, soybeans, but then there are so many others. You have papaya groundnut. This is ranked third after groundnut. You have a mucuna bean. If I ask any child who has never been to the village or to the farm, have you ever been with Wurikwe? They call it Wurikwe, isn't it? Actually, collected those days in secondary school. If you want to punish your senior, you go to the next farm near your boarding school. Get the leaf or the seed, then get you move to the, make sure that the senior is not around. Place it on his table or even chair or bed. The next day you find him, and yet the seed is highly nutritious. Highly nutritious. I could recollect one of my PhD candidates, I don't know how to call it, looked at protein isolate from coconut bean. That's coconut bean, yes. Protein isolate from coconut bean. And it has almost the same potentials like your soy bean. Little for bambara granules. Although your coconut bean is used as grain mature cover crop, but it has a high biomass production and also fit for consumption only, that's only. Because of the pod, very hard. Okay, so it needs lengthy preparation. But really, I'm sure with technology, you can always overcome this, or even with breeding and genetic engineering, you can produce coconut bean that has very soft pods. Next. Well, human food, there are sources of protein for man and livestock. There's increased interest globally for plant protein products. And some years back, when soybean was to be introduced, if you ask an average Englishman to take soy milk or to take margarine or butter, never. No, to take margarine, sorry, not butter. Where you have butter and normal milk. But when the incidence of atherosclerosis came on board, that look, if you want to extend your lifespan, you want to free yourself from atherosclerosis or high blood pressure or whatever, take more of plant milk. If you get to any of the stores in the UK now or any of these advanced countries, you find so many milk products from plant sources. From plant sources, not only soy milk, so many. So, and as such, you can make milk from bambara granule and equally from your mucuna bean. Okay? Then also you can have protein extract or isolate. And also plant proteins can be used as additives. Next please. Then fruits and vegetables. Breadfruit, African or wild mango, water leaf and bitter leaf. These are brought together as 4 under fruits and vegetables. Next please. And that's your breadfruit, and that's your African wild mango, and that's your vegetables. Next please. Now, before then, let me share my experience with breadfruit. Let's go back to breadfruit, please. The breadfruit there. When I was in Ife, maybe Professor Kennedy might confirm this. There was a particular year, maybe it was in the mid-80s, maybe during the time of SAP, when yam became very, very expensive. Very, very expensive. That our salaries could not even take us home. So we find it difficult to eat yam at home. This is true confession. I was either lecturer one or no lecturer then. I could not feed my family with yam. It was then that we realized that breadfruit is highly nutritious. You can see what poverty does. Because all along, initially they call it yellow cake. I don't allow it to fall. So now to have a replacement for yam, we had to go to that market near St. Philip's on the way to Ifewala. Then later we discovered that the market women were cheating us. So to get it at a cheaper rate, you have to wake up as early as 6:30 a.m. to move towards the Aworh and block those coming to supply the market. Yes, I did that. This is true confession. I did that. It was then we realized that breadfruit can be used as can be pound, okay? And when you fry it, it has a very golden color because of the starch and the sugar content. Then you can make a beautiful porridge out of it. But what happened? Immediately the prices of yam went down. They abandoned breadfruit. And breadfruit is highly nutritious. The seeds can also be used for various products. Next, please. Food and drug, okay. They also have the African mango, make juice and alcoholic wine. Then the fresh bark is used to alter the taste of palm wine. And then paste from groundnut seeds, the ground seeds of African mango is valued for its food thickening properties, and the flour can be produced from the kernel. Oil also from the kernels can be produced. Then the pulp could be used for making jam, jelly, and juice. And then the leaves serve as food for livestock by farmers. Let's talk to you. That's just an example. That's African mango, then bottled. You have the buttermilk flour, which can be used for various purposes. And then you have bread from fonio, beautiful bread. Then it can actually be breadfruit flour, not buttermilk flour. Then you have the base product with syrup, okay, produced from breadfruit. And that's amaranth flakes. As you have your cornflakes, so also you can have amaranth flakes. Next. And let's look at the nutritional and health potential of some of underutilized crops. Next. Well, your cocoyam and as well as your buttermilk can be used for the manufacture of resistant starch. Resistant starch has the same properties or properties like your fiber in the diet. Okay, it aids your bowel mobility. It also reduces the incidence of atherosclerosis as well as diabetes as well. So it performs the same function, almost the same function as the fiber in the diet. And then presence of bioactive compounds such as ascorine and water-soluble polysaccharides. There are sources of dietary energy, proteins, of vitamins and minerals. Cocoyam leaves have appreciable levels of antioxidants and dietary fiber. And then the other aspect is negative aspect. Presence of anti-nutrients, predominantly oxalates, which can be removed by processing. Then undercooked kernels and leaves can cause irritable sensation, itching. Next. Then fruits and vegetables, they are rich sources of minerals, vitamins, and many other beneficial components. The reduction of incidence of chronic diseases, antioxidants, and free radical carbohydrate activity. Because of the high content of vitamin C, they are involved in metabolism of cholesterol. And low cholesterol, high cholesterol level is undesirable. Next. Then African mango also have beneficial effect for diabetes and obesity, have analgesic, antimicrobial, antioxidant and gastrointestinal activity. And then the bark of kernels or roots can be used for the treatment of some ailments. And I think the seeds of African mango is also used for soup manufacturing. Next please. It also shows the health benefits of breadfruit. It blocks cholesterol, fights infections, promotes useful skin, and reduces dandruff. Next please. Now let's round up the bioactive components of underutilized food crops and COVID-19. I'm not going to be specific on each of those crops, but rather to look at some of the functional components, okay? Functional components of vitamins that have been linked with the COVID-19 challenges. Now you have phenolics, or phenolic acids, tannins, and coumarins, etc., that have health benefits, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, and anti-mutagenic activity. Next. So just a tabulation, which I saw from literature, on category of functional foods. We have conventional foods containing bioactive food compounds, and the examples are there, mostly vegetables, fruits, grains. I've mentioned some fruits earlier on that contain bioactive food compounds. Then we have modified foods with bioactive food compounds such as margarine. Then we have synthesized food ingredients, and that's where your resistant starch will come in. Next. Then what are the functional food nutrients with possible or plausible prophylactic effect on COVID-19? Vitamin A, its lower susceptibility to infections, acetylcholine and what have you there, and it plays an important role in enabling the body to fight the COVID-19 virus. You know, at the beginning of COVID-19 last year, you find so many, I see some of those tablets, A, D, whatever, but you have some natural food sources. But I was having a debate somewhere, and the question is, you go to Odija market, most of the women there, they hardly put on their mask, isn't it? But they have it. There are several times, yes, Mama, the woman is still there, isn't it? She has not been removed by COVID-19. Then there was this argument. If the high and mighty are falling to COVID-19, and then this is just a conjecture, it may not be the true position, then why should those people out there, not that they are more important, no. But there was this argument that perhaps they are not taking refined foods, number one. Number two, some vegetables that you and I neglect, they eat it. And so, the ancestral is there, immunity. That assertion may be right, it may be wrong. Perhaps later on, scientists will put that right or not. Now you have vitamin C. It lowers the susceptibility of lower respiratory tract infection. And for COVID-19, it is lower respiratory inflammation, isn't it? So vitamin C, which you can get from some of these undigitalized foods. Next, please. You have vitamin D and E. Also, it has been suggested that they enhance resistance to SARS-CoV-2. And the vitamin D reduces risk of infection through multiple mechanisms, and so on. Next, please. Then you have bioactive lipids. Okay? Then you have natural polyphenols, which are present in some of these underutilized food compounds. Then you have plant-derived phenolic compounds, like flavonoids and what have you, that also play a positive effect on this SARS-CoV-2. Next, they have zinc, minerals, they are possible prophylactic action, they are dietary sources, meat, dairy, legumes. Okay, we mentioned 2 legumes earlier on. Next, you have copper, mainly from offal, from nuts, and to lesser extent cereals like folio or millet that we mentioned earlier on, and fruits. Then you have fiber, okay, which are present in all vegetables, cereals, and food. Next, then those 2 compounds also, they are present in mainly in plant sources. Next. Confirm, next is always better. Then the conclusion. Facing the future. Next. There is increasing wide gap between supply and demand of major food crops. It's been suggested, or the population of Nigeria by the year 2030 will be about 264 million. By year 2036, the population will be more than 300 million. By the year 2050, over 400 million. The question is this: are conventional food crop sources, would they be able to meet the demand, food and industrial demand? Because by the time we are increasing the population, the food and nutrient demand will do what? Will go up. The industrial demand will also do what? Go up. So how do you then bridge the gap? Then we shouldn't forget the fact that the issue of climate change, whether we like it or not, we have to face the challenges of climate change. And some of the grains we mentioned earlier, for instance, amaranth and euphonium, are known to survive under very low and harsh conditions. So, some workers refer to them as cereals of the future, crops of the future. So, we need to take this seriously. And also, in the last couple of years, there have been renewed global interest in searching for and documenting underutilized lost crops. One of them is Prof Aworh's book on fruits and vegetables. And across the globe, I came across a publication by FAO talking about 1,492 lost crops of Latin American countries. So also, if we are able to compound the lost crops of this country and see which ones we can revitalize within a short period of time, that will enable us to bridge that population increase, the gap, in terms of demand and supply. Year 2030, how many years from now? Or even year 2050, how many years? Nobody will help us. No developed country will come in here and assist you. Rather, they will prefer that you spend your money to import. So let us look inward. Next, please. That is bitter leaf capsules. I'm sure most of us, we have bitter leaf growing behind our houses. But nearly every day I prune the one in my compound. And that is bitter leaf capsule. Now, why rely on capsules when you can take the original, the natural? Okay? Then the economic aspect is also there. You have to pick it, you have to import and buy. And then psychologically, you don't feel you are taking bitter leaf. You think you are taking what? A drug. So, and that bitter leaf capsule being sold, marketed all over the place. Next, please. Now, sometimes last year, that's around middle of 2020, Nobel put up a publication, and I went through it and extracted this portion that deals with underutilized food crops. It says that is to be able to fight COVID-19 in terms of food security, in terms of food systems. The injunction from the WHO is promote the diversification of crops, including underutilized traditional crops, apply sustainable food production and natural resource management practices. Underline underutilized traditional crops. That's an injunction from the WHO. Next, please. The way forward. there's a need for a multi-stakeholder approach. And what would be the multi-stakeholder approach? Not only those of us seated here or researchers. It has to involve policymakers. It has to involve those of you in the private sector, sir. Because there's no amount of research we do within our laboratories. If it doesn't get out there, it's just mere paper publication. So for us to get it right with respect to Undigitalized crops, we have to involve those who will invest in commercializing our research findings on Undigitalized food crops. And then there's need for product development for conventional and novel food products. And that's where food scientists like you and I come in. And also development of dietetic foods and products containing functional components. Now these people will go to the supermarket, they will check the label, isn't it, what does it contain? Especially in developed countries. And nowadays, we live in a global world where people are now interested in foreign foods. I'm not even talking about Nigeria. Nigeria, we are now on shawarma, isn't it? So many others. In fact, that's another story for another day. Nigeria's neglected foods. Okay? But even then, in developed countries, there's always this craze for foreign foods. But it depends on the presentation. And since we have the raw materials here, why can't you make the best use of underutilized, non-conventional food products to develop dietetic foods? People are now learning from animal products. Okay? More emphasis on plant food material. So that's an opportunity. Containing functional components from that next place. Once again, I want to appreciate all of you, and I want to appreciate the organizers of this symposium, the mentees of Professor Aworh, and the committee. It is my prayer that as we are celebrating our own dear Professor Aworh, we shall all be celebrated by the grace of God. Once again, thank you all, and God bless.
Thank you so much, sir, Professor Isaac Adeyemi, for that wonderful presentation on food industrial and potentials of underutilized and lesser known indigenous Nigerian crops. Can we do it better for Professor Adeyemi? Thank you. Knowledge is power, and that is well captured in the second stanza of UI Anthem, known as the font, Universal, first and best, raised through mind for a noble cause, greatness won with honest toil, guide our people, this to know, wisdom best to service knowledge. If they find the right to learn, for a mind that knows is a mind that is really free. We appreciate you right now. And Professor Adeyemi is one of the best you have produced. The chairman, sir, permit me to take the credit to please recognize the distinguished presence of two members of the governing council of this university. I present to you the Professor of Economics, Professor Olawale Ogunbola. And another Professor of Agricultural and Environmental Engineering, Professor Ademola Aremu. And also recognize another Professor of Agricultural Engineering, Professor Yahaya Mijinjawa. Especially, I present to all of you the four female academic professors of computer science in Nigeria and Africa. Professor Adeleke Osofisa. This is Okalagi 70. Thank you, man. Now, we want to go to the Google message session. Prakash, are you there? Dr. Prakash? That's the president of International Union of Food Science and Technology. Prakash, your Google message. Please unmute your device. You are on, Prakash? Yes, you are on.
Particularly your contribution to science and technology deserves all the applause globally around. Be it Cornell, be it in India, be it in your own country, and also at the same time, and a wonderful career, but you two really prove that here I am and we're all looking forward. I also congratulate your family in supporting you all these years and continue to support. And we from IUFOS welcome you amidst us. Most importantly, you are a gem of the first order, not only for your own country, but for the whole world. We are very proud of you, Charles, and my biggest salute to you for your contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Prakash. God bless you. The Vice Chancellor and Chairman of this event, let me also quickly go through you to please recognize all these people who have joined us online. Professor Hafiz Abubakar, representing the Executive Secretary, National Universities Commission. We also have online Professor Patrick Ngodi, the Senior Professor of Food Science and Technology. Thank you, sir. We also have Professor Babajide Elemo, Past President, NIFST. And we also have the distinguished presence right inside this hall, a retired professor in the Department of Food Technology, Professor G.O. Adegoke. And I understand Professor Oluleye is also online. Professor Ayo Oluleye. Thank you, sir. Now the second Google message will come from Architect Olajide, representing Tertiary Education Trust Fund. Professor Aworh is the Chairman, Third Fund and Third Fund Technical Advisory Group. Thank you, sir.
The Vice Chancellor, represented by Professor Babala, I hope I'm right. Yes. Praise God. Thank you. The Celebrant, Prof Aworh, this is your day. And I bring you this good message on behalf of Professor Suleiman Elias Kokoro, the Executive Secretary, Third Fund. I'm just going to read to us very briefly. Professor Suleiman Buguru holds Professor Aworh in very, very high esteem. And he has expressed his delight in giving this goodwill message at this occasion. Professor Aworh is many things to us in the academic development community. And just as he would always describe Professor Aworh, he described him as a man who is highly distinguished, a professor, a lecturer and teacher, a consummate lecturer, a consummate researcher and scientist, an outstanding author of repute, who has over 100 publications with merit. He's an astute leader who has demonstrated profound leadership and mentorship skills. His humility and gentleness are disarming. He is one loaded academic personality whose contributions to learning and development globally are unparalleled. His rich academic laurels as a professor of food science and technology will remain a height that aspiring scientists would long to attain. Honoring and celebrating a giant of the stature of Professor Aworh is a well thought out initiative which we gladly and proudly, which we in TEDFund gladly and proudly appreciate with. At a period in TEDFund, during the time of evolution, we had an intervention line that had to address the gap of local production of higher education books. And eventually, an intervention line came up to address that problem, that shortfall. So the fund inaugurated a body of highly accomplished academicians called Technical Advisory Group, and Professor Aworh was one of the conveners in that group. Between 2016 and 2018, there was an interregnum in TEDFund. That group went into a low key because there was an interruption in the administration. But in 2019, when things came up again, the group was resuscitated, reinaugurated, and Professor Aworh became the chairman of the Technical Advisory Group. We recognize Professor Aworh for its immense experience and leadership skills. As we speak today, the TEDFund Board of Trustees dissolved and reconstituted the time, and Professor Aworh was reappointed the chairman of the Technical Advisory Group. As we are here today, that group is being inaugurated in Abuja. We cannot exhaust encomiums of Professor Aworh. His wealth of experience, humility, and leadership skills all speak volumes. And on behalf of the Executive Secretary, we want to wish you well. While it is pertinent to state that Professor Aworh may be retired in active service, to us in TEDFund, is still very reliable, very active, and somebody we will always reckon with. And that's the reason behind his reappointment as the chairman Technical Advisory Group. We'll continue to tap from your wealth of experience, sir, your wisdom and knowledge, and it's our prayer that you will have longer life because you have a lot to still give us. From us and TEDFund, we want to wish you a more pleasant and happier life in retirement. God will bless you in Jesus' name. Thank you. I'm just saying from Professor Suleiman Buguru, and I want to also say that he has so much respect for Professor Aworh, And when he was sending me, he said, it's just unfortunate that he couldn't be here in person because of the third inauguration that is taking place just right now in Abuja. But he wishes you well. And we still look forward to tapping so much from you. And that informs your nomination as the chairman of the Technical Advisory Group. Congratulations, sir. And wish you best of luck in the years ahead. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Architect Abatode Olajide, Director Monitoring and Evaluation Department, TED Fund. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may we now to first lecture to be delivered by very distinguished Professor Abiodun Sani, a professor of food microbiology and biotechnology with research emphasis on non-acid and alkaline fermented foods from our Department of Microbiology. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, his paper is entitled Fermentation Biotechnology for Optimal Utilization of Lesser Known Indigenous Crops to Promote Food and Nutrition Security in Nigeria. Professor Sani.
Thank you very much. Please permit me to sit down. I cannot guarantee whether I can cover food. But yes, I'm cooperating, and I don't think I have enough energy to stand up more than 30 minutes. So this is a very good day for us. Happy day. I also want this to end happily. Thank you very much. I just want to first appreciate Professor and Mrs. Aworh for today, what we are doing today, and I pray that God will bless you and multiply you. To God be the glory. You will continue to live in good health, joy, and peace. I'll be talking on this, but I want to give the background. Anything you see here, any achievement, I've actually been able to reach in my career. Professor Aworh played very important role. In fact, it was through him I did some courses in food tech, during my master's. It influenced my direction as a microbiologist. I'm from biological sciences, and going through my CV, you will see Professor Aworh here. Here is handwriting. And that informed everywhere I go. I've always been going to food tech department, whether it is a loan, feeding, whether it's so all the places I visited, France, everywhere is food tech. But I always tell them, I'm not a food technologist. I'm a biological scientist. But to God be the glory, I will continue to remember what I've done for me in my career. Yes. Now I'll be talking on this. And I will make sure that I will not waste time, so that we will be able to also enjoy Professor Taiwo, who have met and we are asked when it comes to the delivery will not be too far away, except I will add some engineering and other things. Next slide, please. You see, Africa today, we are suffering from problem of nutrition insecurity. And if you look at that graph, you will see the way the highest prevalence of undernourishment at 2020 at 2019 was 20%. Go down, that is, if you look at Africa, Asia, and Co, that is what has been consistent. Now let us go to the next slide. Africans that are hungry have not increased to 51 million just between 2019, 2000 and 2019. 51 million Africans are suffering of hunger. And if you look at, especially the children, we have from 31%, 8% of under 5 years of age are more stunted and even wasted because of this problem of hunger. Next. Look at this graph. If you look at that graph, we have about 24.6 million of people who are undernourished. It's doubling. Now go for that, you see 44.1% of food insecurity. So that will lead to what we are saying about this undernourished being increased. Next. Now, what are the potential benefits of lesser known indigenous crops? Africa, including Nigeria, we are all endowed with this lesser known crop. This lesser known is actually not a good way of describing this. To them, it's lesser known. To us, it's known. So we have to go back to the root. So it's not lesser known, but I'm using it the way they have been fooling us. Now, if you look at some of them, look at the cereals, the tubers, the legumes, the nuts, the vegetables and fruit. If you listen to Prof Aworh, he has captured all this. You will see this, the tiger nut, the cotton seed, all this, including the archer, we have all this. And so we shouldn't be talking of food insecurity. Next. One, this food insecurity and poor diet can be addressed if only we can exploit and explore our lesser known crops. But those lesser known crops, they are very good sources of energy, good protein, vitamins, etc. And more important, at least from my own view, my own design, they also have very good bioactive component. We will cover some very quickly here. Now, they can also provide socio-economic benefits if we try to exploit these lesser known crops. But they are dying. Some of them they are now just growing. Not that you are not planting them. You just have them growing, and that is ridiculous. So we have to change very seriously if you want to survive the next decades. As a matter of fact, some of them are useful. Look at some of the Prof Aworh said. You can get products, different types of products that can even replace the animal source one. They have talked about milk and some of our products. I don't mention milk here now. Some of our products that you will see through here are just using this lesser known crop to produce other products that are useful. Next. Well, we have also seen that, how do you say, some of the crops that you now refer to as lesser known crops are now lesser known because this has been sustaining us, in Africa for years. So how can they suddenly now become, in this modern era, lesser known if this has brought us to where we are? So we have to have a rethink. We have to have a rethink here. So it is the fact that they are not utilized. And that is why we are here today. And that is why there's a book by Prof Aworh. I have a copy. It's always on my table. Since I work around that area, so I have to read a lot of his work and some other work for me to be able to now use biotechnology to improve on what we have. So, what has happened to these lesser known crops? They have been neglected. How have they been neglected? You can improve them by using suitable technologies for storage, for processing. We have that problem anyway with the processing, preservation, and packaging. It's a serious problem for us in this country. So, if we simply want to ensure that our consumer will now show interest in the so-called lesser known crops, we have to have products from them that will be appealing, it will be nutritious and healthy. And I will emphasize on healthy. Next slide. What are the limitations of product? from lesser known indigenous crops that we should address. Besides to address it. One, if you look at most of the products, they are crude, they are not appealing, and sometimes they are deficient in important nutrients because of processing. Sometimes they are not digestible, they also undergo spoiling very rapidly. Some are produced without health benefits, and these are some of the problems. Now, if you look at the sensory properties and health benefits of food, these are the critical things to consumers all over the world. They want to look at the health benefits and then the sensory properties before they accept such foods. Next. Now, this is now where I'm coming to. What role will biotechnology play? What role will it play in optimal utilization of these lesser known crops? For us to be able to optimize usage of lesser known indigenous crops, there must, and it's a must, there must be multidisciplinary research and developmental efforts to be able to achieve the goals. One, how do we remove or reduce such derivatives associated with processing indigenous crops? That's the top problem. How do you process it so that people who are the consumers will accept it? Then we have to be able to redesign, which we have seen some of what the process they are being talked about. Redesign the external products that we get from this indoor crop. We have to redesign the products. Then we have to develop new products from some of these indigenous crops. Next. So focus of biotechnology on optimization of this national crops like this. If you look at this source limitation in Nigeria, it's affecting us very well. Most laboratories are not equipped for very, very innovative research. Now, what do we now do? In my own research area, we have what we call grass, generally gathered as safe microorganisms or their metabolites. These are being exploited and exploited during food fermentation. And we all know that food fermentation technology has very low energy input, comparatively, very simple, it's affordable, and it's a sustainable strategy. Next. What are the potential of food fermentation in ensuring optimal utilization of these lesser known crops? One, when you introduce food fermentation, it will confer prolonged shelf life on the ABF condition that we have here to improve safety, improve nutritional value, and improve sensory attributes. And importantly, it will confer health benefits on those food substances. However, most fermentation processes in Nigeria are usually spontaneous, uncontrolled, and leading to products that one will not have consistent quality attributes, will not have safety concerns, and nothing like health benefits on certified one. For instance, ogi, which is common, that's look at this two thing. If you go to Agbowo now, buy ogi that before they produce the ogi, they soak it in hot water and first. You will not have good fermentation of such ogi. It will be a subwater fermentation. It will be bland. It will not have this sour taste. So you are just taking nonsense. Yeah. So that is the truth. I do not go for such ogi. So that, and then when you say health benefit, for instance, I challenged some years ago in Trenchard some researchers from US, and the woman was not happy at all, a Puerto Rican American, and we were talking about this HIV thing. They were just giving data that are not based on science. Yes, they were challenging. I am a natural scientist. This is not true. I want to go into details. And I gave them that If you ferment cookie to 4.0, stage 4.0, if you have diarrhea, just take a cup and see what it does. If you test positive, just HIV, you have HIV, which I've demonstrated, then you say, take this okay for 1 month, go back to that place, you test negative. Why? Because of the beneficial microorganism. We come to some of these things. Next, please. Yes. Well, there are, as I've said before, when you have failed fermentation or suboptimal fermentation, is very important to us in particular microbiology or biotechnology. What do you now have? Have you not gone to market and purchased Iru that will not have what are supposed to be quality attributes of Iru? You have some Iru, no ammoniacal smell. That is not a fermented product. It is not. So such products that are suboptimally fermented, we have poor nutritional quality. They will be unacceptable organoleptically, and they deteriorate rapidly, and usually contamination comes in very quickly. So some of these things have limited the optimal utilization of lesser known crops, and for acceptance by a consumer of derived products from lesser known crops, we have to look at the commercial viability, the scale up, which is important, the scale up, and then by the same time even outside our own domain. Next. Now, I will just speak about 3 or 4. We, in our research team, we are working on starter cultures, that is, organisms that have been found to be very useful and that potential health benefit in control fermentation. Because you have to be able to control your fermentation, you have to be able to also regulate the raw materials. The raw materials have to be regulated, control the fermentation, before you have products that have consistent quality. The process conditions have to be predicted positively, not that it will be changing. So predictability and reproducibility they are important quality attributes before fermented food products can be well accepted. Some of the organisms that we have been using all over, people working on food fermentation, and lactic acid bacteria or lactic fermentation, as I said, yeast in alcohol fermentation, I dropped that. I tell you why I dropped anything alcohol, and then a batch of alcohol fermentation. Yes, I dropped the alcohol fermentation because when I had a PhD, I was looking for postdoc. I had 2 fights, no email, nothing, 2 full fights. They will give me excuses because I was talking about alcohol, until Professor Morgan Jacobson in Sweden said, can you just rewrite this and focus on food? But in the developing country, nobody will give it such disadvantage. You can't be talking about alcohol when people need food. So that is why we wasted that 2 big fights. And you will be laughing that you are just wasting your salary. So I changed. And that was why I came into food properly. So the book alcohol when it comes to my own research, but the 2, I work on them. Now the microorganisms that you will use for this control fermentation must be specific species, sometimes strain specific. One, if you don't, you will have what we call suboptimal fermentation, and then it will also, the bioactivities will not be what you are supposed to have. That is why starter culture application you must have what the conditions are to be met if you want to achieve your goals. Next. Now look at some of the selected fermented foods of Nigeria, because we have what to talk of Nigeria, which have been produced from regional crops. From Pyramid, we have produced Kunosaki. From Slogan, that is Burukutu. You can even see still foaming there, From locust bean, you have iru. From mesquite seed, you have okpeye. From tiger nut, you have nuaya. From cotton seed, you have owo. Let me tell you, cotton seed is poisonous. It's poisonous, but when it is fermented, it becomes a very good condiment, rich in protein and co. And yet we waste it. It is not. When you ferment it, it leads to products called owo. It's popular in Angola and Ishan. Mesquite is also not edible. It's toxic. And okpeye is so popular in the Middle Belt, using this mesquite. And so on. And these are things that we just abandon. And they are good source of protein and other products. Next slide. This is one of our work in Germany. You see, we developed a product named Sogot from Sogot. Sogot means yogurt-like, because it's yogurt-like. But the aim is not even about the yogurt-like. We isolated this organism that we are seeing, although it will be called BFE, that means the organism belongs to Germany, but these are the products that I took from Nigeria, and we isolated all these organisms. The government did not pay me anything, so the German government is owing this now. And I can tell you something that's very sad here. If you look at this so-called, one, we have two important organisms there. We have one organism that demonstrated 47% adherent property. I will tell you that when it comes to biotherapy. Adherent 47, and the standard, the global standard is 22. So we have an organism that has 47%, that is the truth. Combined with this other organism to produce this yogurt. That means, apart from the nutrition, you could see the type of properties that we had. One, we needed galactosidase in some, we needed glucosidase in some, we needed some of this property, and then that adherence, the organism has some adherence, will now be important when we want to use this so-called as carrier. For instance, children's diarrhea, even include antibiotic-induced diarrhea. Once you have this so-called, with that organism there, their organism and others, they will adhere to the intestinal mucosa and then elaborate this metabolite, and that is the end of the diarrhea. And this all these organisms will have been encapsulated. If the Nigerian government encourages us, this can be encapsulated. And just use it, but again, this is where we are. It's there in Germany. I don't know whether they do making money there now. So it is true. Next. Now, if you look at these so-called now, using selected access criteria, you will see that they have, if you look at the properties, that's what I'm talking about, BFE, that is the institute that I went, the Institute of Food Hygiene and Toxicology. So they have, is the organism, BFE, yes, they are all my property. But let me tell you something so that I won't be unfair on them. I brought people from Germany. I was the one who went. You know, I was already a professor of 6 years. I went and they were shocked that how could a professor be working for the technologies for my host, Prof Aworh, one of our grandfather in food microbiology, retired. So I was forced to be doing all this work myself. And in Germany, it's about status. Professors don't. Professors, you sit down, they're taking coffee, writing examples that they should do it, and then it happens for them. But I was working like a student, and my student, PhD student, now professor, just left a year or two before I came, and they were not asking. He said, this man is a professor, is he doing that? He will come 8 o'clock, it's 7 o'clock, on Saturdays with fun. But I knew what I was doing. Yes, I knew what I was doing. This so-called, we have now had the board of it now being used. It has more technological processing, which we have no time to go into here, because we did some malting and so many other things. That is, the food scientists and who we know what I'm trying to say about the attributes that it has, apart from the health benefit. Next, Now, we also develop starter culture for functional cereal beverage. You see, you have products, if you have products that is functional, and functional can be one, it can be nutritional, improve nutrition, or two can be biotherapy. This picture devising OG32 was, this work was done in India, our counterpart, my PhD student then, isolated this organism. If you are a microbiologist now, you know that picture name has just changed within 6 months. It is now called Wickham. Because one, the Wickham person was the one who can regard him as one of the fathers of this characterization. And then I think they are just honoring him now. But as I told my students, don't change the name that you publish. The journal publish it as picture. You cannot put now synonym so. This, if you look at this picture, this is now an organism are now being recognized as probiotic. The only one we know before is Boladi. You know, Saccharomyces boladi. Picture is coming now. For that my student, I was invited after defending to write a mini review on some of these things that we have been able to isolate and characterize outside adding probiotic potential. And you could see this one has ability to produce proteins, lipases, and phytase. And for people who are in food technology, you know what these organisms can do. When you combine them even with lactic acid bacteria and code, you can reduce the anti-nutrient content, phytic acid, by doing that. And you look at the potential probiotic. This particular is granotococcal bacteria now, it can survive at pH, 100% survive at pH 3 and pH 2. That is the pH of the stomach. All other organisms will die, including the pathogens. They will just die. And this organism will survive. It is not a bag that it survives. And 75% in bisalt will survive also. And at 100% of simulated gastric acid, it survived. And it has also demonstrated some form of adherence property to the intestinal wall. It reduces cholesterol. These are things that we can now produce. That is what we produce. One of the things we produce from there in India. That is the India type of sorghum. We use it in animal study to reduce cholesterolness. You will see good. If you look at that table now, we use it, this organism, you know, to reduce the lipid profile of railway salad. So if you have a product that has that, you are already reducing cholesterol that is not useful. It's not affecting the cholesterol that is useful. Next. Now we also have a similar study where we combine lactic acid bacteria and yeast, the common Candida tropicalis. We use them to improve the nutritional profile and antioxidant capacities of some fermented grapes from millet and sorghum. We just use the same data. That's a 2021 publication, and it was published. If I have a book, you know, published by Taylor and Francis on biotechnology of African fermented foods. So those two, even the next one, we are talking of polysaccharide. Some organisms that the process of polysaccharide can be very good as thickener. They can be used when you want to thicken some food products. And we have some of these organisms that has antifungal properties. And when we use this organism for some of our products, this lesser known gross product, it's the mouthfeel was different, the viscosity, and then this phase separation. There was no concentration of the monocyte that we produce from, and the mixture of the millet sorghum berry led to products that we can both deploy nutritionally and deploy for health benefit. Next. These are the different products that we use those organisms, different products, combination of millet and sorghum. And the product has different functions as you see them. So that we targeted certain problems, and we used appropriate starter culture for those their fermentation. Next, then I want to report this when I mentioned that you can make maize from you can make bread from maize. You know, you laugh, but we did this successfully, producing sourdough from 100% maize. And I think that was the first report that will come from Africa, outside Europe, where they have sourdough bread. And we use the technique, and if you look at the flavor and the bread that was produced, you will know it will reduce all the amount we spend on wheat, importation of wheat. Next, this one was done by my former student, now late, unfortunately, one of the most brilliant babies that I've ever produced. That's the bread. You see, it is not going to be like the normal 100% wheat bread. This is sourdough. In fact, some people, when we did the organic testing, they said we should not call it, they want to call it one other name, that we should call it cake. You see, we are so stereotyped. We are so stereotyped, and that is why we need to incorporate certain benefits into products that are coming. If not, if you look at Nigeria now, they will tell you that if it is not Panadol, it cannot be like Panadol. That is simply a problem for researchers. This one will not have it's from, it's something like the normal white bread. But this is what from 100% means. People thought it was impossible. But when I mentioned it in Sweden, they might have said, you're going to do that, are you sure it's going to work? I said, why would you not work? You're right. You are right. It's right wheat. It's right, it's not wheat, but you are eating a lot of sourdough bread from wheat. Why would you say, he then said, sorry, please, let's see it. I said, no, because it was that to discourage me. So, and yet, this is what we produce. Next. And if you look at it, yes, if you look at the result, the bread from Saccharomyces, the beta yeast, it has better properties compared to this, except when it comes to antifungal that our sourdough bread itself, because it's a mixture of, you see, it doesn't have, there's no gluten in maize. But what it did was we had a cocktail of lactose bacteria. The one that will ensure that there will be production of carbon dioxide, trapping the carbon dioxide that is produced during the dough making, and the one that will make the souring, and then different combination will produce different type of bread. But when we still look at some important thing for wheat bread, they are so near that we say, yes, why not? If we adopt it, after some time we get used to it. It's also soft, it is not hard like cake, so that is the disochemical property. Yes. This is from millet now, and not maize. This one was done recently in collaboration with Food Tech in India. In this one of the research institutes, my students do that regularly. This is from millet. That is the way it looks. But now, when you slice it, you look at it differently. The top view, you are seeing the top view. What is wrong with this? It may not be as, is this not bread? But it's sourdough bread. Is it not a product from millet? And you think millet is only for wheat? But this is millet now being used for sourdough bread. Why not? And we are talking of hunger. There won't be hunger if you take this bread to the village. They will jump assist. So that anyway, I don't want to talk about the political aspects of science. Next. And these are the properties that I don't want us to waste time by the properties. Again, you see the differences. Two different combinations of organisms that we have selected, starter culture. Yes. Now, cassava. Yeah, we know cassava in the first instance. There is nothing that says that cassava is lesser known. Because now, the fufu that we eat now, if you buy fufu of 200 naira, if you're a good eater, I don't think that can really satisfy you. Because they are now taking our flour, starch, abroad. That is the problem. Rather than we consuming it, suddenly the less. So it's not a lesser known crop as far as I'm concerned. In fact, this is the one that has been sustaining us. So it's not lesser known. It's Go ahead, thank you very much for this one. It's not necessary. You see, this cassava, we know that it's a major source of calorie, but the optimal utilization is being deterred by what again? It has low energy density. It's deficient in some essential amino acid. It has high concentration of cyanide and anti-nutrient, and it deteriorates rapidly. So what can we now do with cassava into different products so that we'll be able to overcome this? Next, we now have what we have this efficient amylase producing stream. When I was in Sweden, France, where I isolated this organism, the Fermented, we thought we had a new organism. And I told my host, this is just not a new organism. It's not telling that. We have to send the money, let them go and do. He wasted the $200 or so, how much we paid for them to go into the sequencing. And I was laughing, the result came, the man did not talk about whether, because he gave it name. Let us name it, Latrobacillus Sunny, that is my son. That is Fermented. He was giving them the next week. He said, do we give it Nigeria? He said, well, we want Nigeria. But I said, well, if it is a new organism, I will not name it in Nigeria. He said, Latrobacillus. I don't want to tell you, but that is for my family, you know. Anyway, I didn't see any result. And I wrote a letter to the woman doing the sequencing in Germany. We were in France. I wrote a long letter, when I want you to give me something, I just wrote it. Later the woman was having so happy, but she said, I'm supposed to send it to your home. And I said, yes, I think it's good. I just I want to have a copy. And he sent it to me. I also kept quiet. Because I knew that it was now Fermented, but a newly efficient amylase producing strain. That was the way we published it, and it has been used all over. I've seen a lot of paper using this Fermented. We now combine this. We combine this, blend this and Fermented, incorporate it as starter culture to increase the energy density of our cassava-based product. That is what we did. We use it to increase the energy density. In cassava, you know, there are two different products, one in 2012 and then the current one in 2011. And then this, what I'm telling you now, this strain now is using this Undigitalized anomaly. It used to be another name entirely, not Undigitalized anomaly. That we use this now because this is not public. But we got this organism that demonstrates potential that can reduce the cyanide in cassava. This is a yeast. I'm not that specific. A combination of that, we combine them, and the inflation was so efficient that you can combine, and this yeast can also survive acidic environment. These are some of the things yet to be public. These are some of the things that we can do to improve the utilization of our crop, whether we call it lesser known or well known. Next. This one is about improving the shelf life. That is reducing deterioration. This is fufu. That fufu of 10 naira, 20 naira then is now issued the 100 naira now. One. You see, we have all the things that this is batrocin. Batrocin, we know in food technology, just like niacin, they do use them now for preservation, food preservation. We use batrocin producing lab to improve the shelf life of our food, special fermented cassava product. We use them, and then if you look at the table, you will see that if you look at the first one at 5 days, they started no organism. But if you look at A and B, they deteriorate so quickly. And because they had no pathogenic organism as one of the cultures that we use. So we have the one that stays up to 30 days or more before we could see sign of pathogen or food spoilage organism growth. 30 days, not in the fridge. 30 days on the bench. And these are things that will help us if we further develop it, optimize the processing, and then the packaging can also come into it. But again, I don't know. We have research studies that are just on the laboratory bench and not no money to upgrade. Next. Now we look at another one, legumes, common legumes, and we now see that how can we use agricultural technology to optimize the process of these legumes. One, we know that these legumes, when they are subjected to fermentation, they are called condiments. Most of them, as I said before, they are poisonous. They are toxic. But yes. So when we look at this, we now try to use functional starter culture to improve the processing and other things next. And these are some of the products next. What are now the challenges? One, what are the challenges of starter culture technology in Nigeria now? Limited knowledge of the microbiome. You have to have good knowledge of the microbiome. Lack of regulatory capacity and absence of technology and culture collection centers. Next. In conclusion, I know that if we develop good starter cultures and we apply them, it will provide us with good platform that we can take to the food policy makers and regulatory agencies for us to be able to, one, optimize the utilization of lesser known indigenous crops, and this will eventually foster nutrition security in Nigeria. Next. These are some of the scenarios. Thank you very much for giving me this.
Thank you, sir. Professor Abiodun Sani. The next paper, for the next 15 minutes, is from Professor Kende Adekunbi Taiwo, a professor of food science and technology, with his focus on fraud, crop production, food science, and agricultural technology. May we put our hands together for Professor Taiwo.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. There are pros and cons for being last. Now my time has been cut. But another benefit is that most of what I want to say, or some of them, have been said. So I may not go through the slides to save us time. I would like to start with Madam. She's on her way out. Honestly, you are endowed. When I came, I thought she was Dr. Ezekiel. And I went, I greeted her, I said, I'm coming later. She was looking at me like, Madam, you are blessed. My other came and said, Dr. Ezekiel. I said, so, we are very grateful. You look good and you are taking good care of our Oga. I want to say good afternoon to the high table, the representative of the Vice Chancellor. He is a friend. We were on Alexander von Humboldt fellowship together in Germany some years back. Good afternoon, sir. The Oga of my Oga, I don't know. But the first time I actually met him, I've read of his works and so on. I was invited to examine his students. I said, Nike, what do I know that I will be asking the student of my Oga? I said, did I make a mistake? He said, no, I know why I chose you. And I want to thank God for the opportunity he gave me to do that work. When he was being interviewed for this professor chair, the VC called me. I said, see me again. They are interviewing emeritus professor, and it's me that will be serving as a consultant. And when we got to the interview, They said consultant, stop. What will I ask the grandfather of food science? But we struggled through. He didn't teach me, but I've had very pleasant interactions with him. We've met at various fora, meetings, conferences, and he's always encouraged me. I want to congratulate you, sir, for this successful retirement and the recognition you are receiving today. I wish you all the best, and as another grandfather said, you have just started, or you ain't started yet. I want to thank the organizers for the opportunity to partake of today. I know we have a mixed audience. Many are my professional colleagues, so you will know what I'm talking about. But many are not. For the sake of those who are not, I choose the path of layman's language. Now, I've been asked to talk about post-harvest technology and food processing in relation to lesser-known crops. Like I said, please, the definition has already been done. But in looking at this topic, I have intermixed the word food processing and food technology. I was looking at processing as the actual unit operations that the material passes through to get to the final product. If we say ogi making, you soak maize, you grind, you sieve, that is a process. Then again, technology. So it can be a technology. That process can be a technology. Then again, technology can be the equipment you are using. So there are two things in one that we are looking at here. The processes that you are using and the technology, the equipment you are using. And this slide, or the one before, showed us, as we've been told, that lesser known crops fall into a wide range of food crops, from seeds to tubers to cereals. So what process am I going to talk about? Or what technology am I going to talk about? I looked, I said, Shay, where did they put me in this job? It is a big topic. Because if it is cereals now, we can talk about cereal processing. If it's tubers, but this group of crops fall across all the classes of food. So I have taken a way of just looking at food science in general. So the next slide, yes, this just shows the different lesser crops. Next one. Here, I said what is food processing? It is the transformation of agricultural products into food. It allows changes to the eating quality of food to be made in a predictable and controlled manner. Next slide. These are the traditional methods or conventional methods: smoking, washing, chopping, curing, fermentation. We heard Professor Sonny say cotton seed is poisonous, but when it undergoes fermentation, it makes the food palatable. Cassava is poisonous. When it undergoes fermentation, it makes the food palatable. So we have a long list of processing methods depending on the food. Again, I'm saying this because of my friends in uniform. Next slide. Now, what are the benefits of processing? It removes the toxin, preservation of the food, which makes the food available all year round. Marketing is easy, transportation is easy, distribution to places that are far, consistency, you get the same product over and over. And then the last one says modern supermarkets would not exist today if there was no food processing. It is processed foods that are sold. Next slide. Again, we have a long list here. I just want to highlight that it improves the quality of life for people with allergies. Some people take milk and they react. Some take sugar, they break out in sweat or rashes.
different people have different reactions. But with food processing and labeling, people can identify the ingredients in foods and know what to avoid and what to go for. He says it also adds extra nutrients to the food. We now have fortified food, vitamin E enriched margarine, and so on. Next slide. Now, in looking at food processing methods, it says the classification depends on the country you are talking from. In advanced countries, they look at the extent of technology involved. In developed countries, they look at the manpower and capital investments. That means in the developed countries, manpower and capital is not the issue. In developed countries, we have three classes of food processing. The first one is primary food processing. This is the basic one that turns agricultural products into something that can eventually be eaten, like wheat kernels to flour. Flour is not consumed directly, but it can be processed further. So that first step of converting wheat flour to flour is primary. Next slide. Secondary processing. That flour is now turned using baking into bread or cake or pastry. That is secondary. And then the tertiary is the commercial production of what is commonly called processed foods. By the time you go to this high level, you have tertiary food processing. And at those three levels, we are talking high level of technology. Next slide. In our own side of the world, these are the classifications of our food processing. Home scale, micro, small scale, medium. Next slide. Now, in adjudging food processing technologies, there are some criteria that we use. Hygiene, technical effectiveness, conformity, economics, and so on are some of the criteria. Under hygiene, we have health. Now people are conscious of what they eat. You want to reduce fat in the food you take. So in processing crops, there are options now. We have air frying of food instead of deep fat frying of food. You can make your dodo without putting it in oil. That is a possibility now because of consciousness of health. Again, it says maintaining the natural taste of the product by using, for instance, artificial sweeteners or other forms of sweetening agents. These are things that are taken into consideration in processing food. The environmental impact of the process, here I can spend some time. Palm oil, when we make palm oil, after the aqueous extraction, the water from the oil is poured on the ground and does not sink into the ground easily. That technology is not good for the environment. The same thing with gari. During fermentation, water seeps from gari into the ground and it collects in an area that produces offensive odor. That is a technology that is not good for the environment. There are improved technologies for gari making in Nigeria where you don't smell that smell of fermentation. So when we are talking of processing technologies for lesser known crops, these are things we need to take into consideration. Technical effectiveness, we are talking about whether the technology will produce foods in the required quantity. I will soon show you a diagram. The type of technology, the scale of production, whether the product meets the required quality standards, how much of waste does this technology produce, how much cleaning stops, what is the energy consumption, are there alternative sources of energy? Next slide. Human issues. In a technology you want to consider, how much labor do you need? The effect of increasing employment or displacement of workers. This is something we talk about in gender. You bring a greater to a community and the men take over the grazing operation and the women become customers. That kind of technology will not be acceptable. The training and level of skills required to operate the technology, then the distribution of profits within the community. The Gary greater I mentioned, because men have taken over the prime mover, they feel they are part of that process, value chain. So it is not just 100% women. Now, the technology, also, how does it conform to local traditions, beliefs, and food habits? Does it also conform to existing administrative and social structures? In terms of cost, what do you need as initial purchase or maintenance? Availability of fuel, is it something that you can do without diesel or fuel and so on? Next slide. So those are factors we take into consideration in deciding on the technology to use in processing our foods. Now I want to look at indigenous food processing technologies. They have quite a few limitations as we know them. Many of them are crude, they are not standardized. Even the greater mechanized grater that we all know, if a part, the grating part, develops a fault, you cannot go to any shop to say, I want to buy a grater 4x6 and so on. You have to go to a fabricator who will take measurement and do it specifically for you. The world has gone beyond that. We all buy spare parts. They don't know us. But in food processing, there is no standard part. They are not based on any scientific principle. The grater I mentioned, it is a metal rectangular piece with pierced holes. If you ask, what is the distance between the holes? Well, I mean, there should be some scientific basis. We don't have. They just pick nail and hammer it, and that is it. The purpose is create a rough surface. How much rough surface gives you fine grating? That is what science is about. How much rough surface gives you optimal grating? We don't have it. They are unsuitable to large scale. This is known. They are laborious, time consuming, and the quality of the product is small. The bit about women, we know that women are mainly engaged in processing. So we need to talk about gender-friendly or gender-responsive equipment. This is another topic on its own. Gender-responsive equipment. You give equipment to women that they can use. There was a UNDP project. They took a thresher to a community for women. They have to ride. It's a bicycle pedaled thresher. After a while they came back, it was abandoned, and they asked them, and the women said, our legs, our thighs are exposed when we are riding because they tie wrapper. If they were wearing trousers, it would not be an issue. So that's just gender friendly or gender responsive technology. Next slide. So in upgrading our local indigenous technologies, we have the challenge of modernizing the processes and the equipment, and then retaining the traditional attributes. Foods made by modern techniques have resulted in products having unacceptable to consumers. This is a major problem in food science. The two speakers before me referred to it. You improve the process for a particular product, but by the time you finish, the product is richer in nutrients and so on, but because it does not look like your traditional product, the sensory scores are always low. Let's take amala, elubo. We've seen elubo prepared in oven. It comes out very yellowish, beautiful. The drying time is short, but do a sensory analysis. Compare it with elubo from the market. The brown or black. You know our children call it black stuff. They will not eat it. And elubo from microorganisms. You are drying tubers over a long time using sun drying. The microbes are active, everything is turning black. So the product ends up black. But we are used to black. It is, we are just used to black. And when you do the sensory analysis, they'll say it's not the same. Meanwhile, you have it better. And because of that, locally developed products are not receiving the acceptance they deserve. If your product is nutritionally good, but nobody is buying it, you cannot make it as a marketer. I give examples of products that have been successfully upgraded: garri production, instant yam flour, soy, ogi, and so on. Please, move on. Next slide. I'm going to skip. Just next one. Aha. We see this is biscuit making. Look at a mechanized system or industrial system. You can see the mama. In terms of scale, what quantity can she make that will compete with the one on the left? Next slide. You see peeling. That is our own traditional. Next one. Now we have what are called Nobel food processing technologies. And this can be divided. There are many non-thermal processing technologies. The two principles they use, they reduce the negative impact of thermal processing and avoid the increase of temperature. They work at low temperatures. Next slide. This is a list of non-thermal technologies. This is where the world is now. Next slide. You can see this, the one on the left is pulsed electric field. To use simple language, you are electrocuting food. That is pulsed electric field. You pass electricity through the food before final processing. The product is rich and good. Next slide, to the right, is egg being pasteurized. You can see the equipment they are using. Next one. So I'm going to skip all these benefits. Continue. I want to show us some things. This to the left is high pressure application sterilization process. To the right, yes, that's another technology. Now, apart from these listed ones, we say that technology is moving to what we call Industry 4.0, the industry of the future. We are still talking hoe and cutlass. But the developed ones we are competing against, they are going to Industry 4.0. Next slide. You will see what they are talking about. They are using artificial intelligence and advanced robotics. Next slide. I want you to see the areas in which robots are already working in food processing. Detecting odors, identifying contaminants. It says they have human taste buds and e-noses. Robots have been used for grading products, evaluating ingredients, making smoothie. Now we have robotics in food packaging, in food delivery, in food cookery. Next slide. Next slide. We see examples, pictures. You can see the robot plucking tomatoes. In the middle, you see the robot holding strawberry. Strawberry is a very sensitive fruit that you need to handle gently so that it does not bruise. You see to the right, the robotic finger handling egg. To the bottom left, that is a drone delivering food to the retail shelves, and then we have the robotic packaging. Next slide. We see in the industry of the future, food processing of the future, to the left, we see 3D printed food. We have packaging to the right there. Next slide. So, these new technologies, they also have limitations. One of them is that they are limited. High pressure application is limited to batch processing, and pulse electric field is limited to liquid, and they do not activate spores. I'm just rushing this. Next one. Another one is automation. Most of them are not yet fully automated. Next one. They have been adopted mainly by the small-sized industries for now. The initial costs for these technologies are high. Next one. And then we need regulations. We talk of standards. In the EU, they have defined novel foods as any food that has been processed using a non-known process before 1997. So any new process beyond 1997 is called a novel food, and therefore has a new regulation must be set for it. Next slide. The equipment designs. There are still some issues concerning equipment designs for these novel technologies. Next one. The conclusion, you can stop now, for me, is that these lesser known crops are beautiful. We've been told the composition, the health benefits, and so on. We need to go beyond using our local equipment. As it's been said, in research, we need to do a lot of research on what we can do with them. As Professor Adeyemi was talking, I was taking notes. Things that research I can do with breadfruit. We've been working, he talked about when it was expensive. Now that things are normal, nobody's working on it. We need to produce different products from the things we have. The beauty of Europe or advanced country, you get to the shelf. One product, maize, you can get 20 different products from one product, maize. In Nigeria, maize is ogi and efo. Anything outside maize and ogi and efo is not maize. We have potentials, but they have not been developed. And then also, we need to sensitize our people to accept new products. The way we've been doing it is the way we've still been doing it, and that is what is killing our initiatives. And of course, the role of the government is also listed in assisting with equipment purchase. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Taiwo. The chairman, sir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we want to appreciate all those people who have supported us financially to make this day a glorious one for our mentor. All our donors, Professor Latif Sani, former Deputy Vice Chancellor, Development Funab, Professor Aki Oluwalana, Professor T.N. Fagbemi, Professor T.C. Isdeji, Professor T.C. Chikere, Professor Beatrice Ade Omowaye, Professor Bolanle Akewande, Dr. Labisi Akilua, Dr. T.O. Olurin, Dr. A.A. Adedeji, and Dr. A.E. Okorua. May we put our hands together for all of them. You have been wonderful too. All the former students, PhD students of Professor Achasawa, wherever you are, kindly stand up for recognition. All the former PhD students. Oh, our current HODs. Thank you. Please take your seat. Well, some of them are listed here. Professor J.K. Joseph, Professor K.O. Falade. Where is Professor Falade? Professor B.A. Olulade. Professor Luwatoyin Oshundamsi. Professor A.A. Onopade. Professor Ngozi Ariza. Professor Dr. Tawakalitu Aruna. Dr. Sadia Babalola. Dr. Olufunmilola Olatunmoye. Dr. Atinuke Idowu, Dr. Phyllis Uzo Peter, Dr. A.A. Adiola, Dr. Lufunke Ezekiel, or the woman relating with me all these days. I especially put you all together for her. Please. which is wonderful. And our corporate organization, which also supports us, Flour Mills of Nigeria, PLC. Let me draw the special attention of this wonderful assembly to some products that we have produced in our Department of Food Technology, and we have them displayed at the entrance of this hall. At Baluma products, we have jam, juice, and candy. Yeye products, we have jam, juice. For pineapple, we have leather, dry slices, juices, juice. Then for pawpaw, banana, and banana, we have dry slices. For tiger nut, we also have tiger nut drink. And we have a book also displayed here, authored by Prof Charles Aworh, and it is titled Lesser Known Nigerian Fruits and Vegetables, Post-Harvest Handling, Utilization, and Nutritional Value, which runs together by our Department of Food Technology now. Encourage us. Now, to the high point of today's remarkable event. We want to appreciate our distinguished honoree. Please step forward, sir, with Mommy Olutola Aworh.
Mentorship for that which he has done for us. We are what we are because of who he is. He has never left us. He is always available. Whenever you approach him, he's forever and ever ready and willing to contribute his knowledge, his wisdom, his acquisitions to your welfare. We want to say thank you, sir. It is our heart of gratitude. It's not the gift, sir. It is the thought that goes with the gift. Please, sir, we want you to accept this little gift on behalf of the mentees and to say that you are forever in our hearts and you will remain there always. There is none like you and there will never be anyone like you as far as you are concerned. Thank you very much.
That should be okay. That's all right. That's all right. Okay. Congratulations, sir. Sorry, the Vice Chancellor, sir. I want you to the table. Group photograph with the Celebrant, our distinguished honoree. Just for the sake of it, and remove that flag by getting. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please, may I have one with my Baron Grammar School students?
The students of the Baron Grammar School, they are. Okay, pull out there. Do something. Okay, they want to sing a special song for our distinguished honoree. Okay. Oh yeah, please come forward. Okay, sir.
I rise on sons of the mountain and sing praises to the Lord. I shout for joy with one accord, the boys from far and near. Remember now the glorious day.
Dr. Ezekiel.
On a bien les problèmes.
To our dear Professor Aworh, we always appreciate you. And today we are very proud to be here for your valedictory lecture symposium. At the same time, we congratulate you for attaining the age of 70. So on behalf of Grammar School Student Association, we give it. Of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
You better be careful.
You better be careful.
Be careful. We are not
Better be
Principal.
Principal Ibadan Grammar School, you are much appreciated. I can also see Mr. Oshoto, retired permanent secretary in the Oyo State Civil Service.
He's the chairman.
Oh, he's also the chairman.
He's chairman Ibadan Branch.
Okay. Thank you. I've also seen Mama, Reverend Professor Ogugwan, Charles Aworh, Professor Agosa.
The Vice Chancellor, ably represented by Professor Aworh, the Provost of the Postgraduate College, my wife, Mrs. Tola Aworh, oh, my friend of 50 years, former Vice Chancellor really of two universities, was Vice Chancellor at Lautech, was perhaps best known for his time at Bell, Professor Bioactive. They represent, terrible protocol. My dean, Professor Aworh, please pardon me. The representative of the Executive Secretary of Tech Fund, Architect Olajide, the representative of flour mills, the representative of the registrar, of course our distinguished session speakers, KT, who was the former dean of technology of Prof Aworh University, and Professor Sonny, Emeritus Professor E.B. Lucas, Engineer Sulu, Architect Fadele, many other Professor Adegoke, and many others who have taken time to be here today. Dr. Obajimi, of course, Professor Mrs. Shomi has just been mentioned. Professor Farouk, the far too many names for me to go through. I don't know where to start. My mentees have surprised me in a great way, but perhaps I should really start by craving your indulgence to please rise in memory of two of my PhD students that are no longer here, because when we look good, it's really on account of our students. Anybody who is in academics and it's what it saw, will say so. So today I want us to remember in particular Dr. Molara Pampa Ni Onobamiro, one of my early PhD students, just barely managed to defend her PhD thesis and then died of cancer. So one of my saddest days was seeing her in UCH, was heading for Germany for a study visit. I had no inkling at all when I was supervising Molara Pampa that she had cancer. Grilled her like I would grill any other of my PhD students. And she was just able to defend the thesis less than 2 months or so after she passed on. But I was at her bedside and she said, Prof, one thing you will do for me. My work must be published. And I tell her, Molara, that will be done by God's grace. And by the grace of God, I went to Germany, finished just some aspects of our work, and that work was published in one of our leading journals, Food Chemistry. And if you take a look at the publication, you will see there Molara Pampa disease, because she had passed on by the time the paper was published. Our sister, Professor Mrs. Odeko, will forever be grateful for that. So it's, I recall Molara, I feel very, very sad. Of course, Mutairu Ekuleti, we all know. Professor Mutairu Ekuleti of Benin University of Abomo Calabi, who was my PhD student. He came to Nigeria in the 80s, could hardly speak any English. Very bright chap. Started together, did masters with me, went on to the PhD. Indeed, one of my most cited work was the work I did with Untitled. Became a full professor in Cotonou, well known all over the world, but lost him a number of years ago. So a minute of silence in their memory, please. May their gentle souls continue to rest in peace. Amen. And may God comfort their families. Amen. Thank you very much. Well, first and foremost, let me start by thanking God for sparing my life to see this special day. That this is happening right here and now, with me, hale and hearty, at the age of 70. And like my daughter would say, more dronile. I come from out for the very first time. In a country where the life expectancy for men is 55 years, compared to 64 years in Ghana and 81 years in the United Kingdom. Underscores God's grace and the special favor that I have received, for which I will be eternally grateful. Second, what a great honor to be surrounded by such an array of highly accomplished mentees who have deemed it fit to honor me in this way at great expense to themselves, both in time and money. I have had the privilege of my former students becoming my head of department, a rare privilege that you can only enjoy in academics. Not succumbing to the pressures and opportunities of leaving Nigeria for more lucrative positions in foreign universities has turned out to be the best decision that I have made under God's guidance. And it truly took His guidance for me to decide to stay on at the University of Ibadan. When, upon returning to the university, after a sabbatical at the University of Leeds and the University of British Columbia in 1987, I was offered an appointment without an interview to help set up a new department of food science in a university abroad. If I had taken that job, and there was tremendous pressure to take it, it would be a different story today. I would have left Nigeria in 1987. Who knows what will have become of me? But all these wonderful people, I wouldn't have had the privilege, the opportunity of interacting with. So really I look back and I give thanks to God. My Vice Chancellor, sir, there is a serious shortage of academic staff in the Department of Food Technology. And I wish to plead with you to look into this as a matter of priority and urgency. By the grace of God, of the 8 academic staff in the department. Indeed, there are only 7 now, as one actually retired last year. 4 are my former PhD students. Two were supervised for their PhD by my former PhD students. So those are like second generation students. And I was the internal examiner for the one who has a PhD in agricultural engineering. So I am surrounded in the department by a cherished team of witnesses with shared experience, for which I am very, very grateful. Third, coming to the topic for today. The theme of this valedictory symposium was carefully chosen by my mentees to reflect the area in which I have devoted a great deal of my research. Lesser known crops, and I agree, cassava should not really be among them. Lesser known crops receive little attention in international science, and as we have heard, are referred to as orphan crops. Nobody cares for them. They don't have parents. They're just orphans. So working with them, especially from the standpoint of preservation, processing, and value addition, may not be as academically rewarding in a sense as working with conventional crops. But as has been aptly demonstrated in this symposium, we ignore them at our own peril. Sustainable food security cannot be based on a few crops: rice, maize, wheat, soybeans, that account for a major proportion of global food supply. By far, my most cited work was on soybeans, whereas work done with our traditional African fruits, such as African mango, oro, that has been referred to in Yoruba, African star apple, agbalumo in Yoruba, or udala in Igbo, hot plum, iyeye in Yoruba, and others are far less cited, even though published in the same high-impact international journal, because there are few researchers in the area and lack of interest by mainstream international science. So while working with conventional crops may be more academically productive, in quotes, in terms of citations, the opportunities for breaking new grounds and advancing knowledge offered by lesser known crops, I believe, are far more challenging, exciting, and rewarding. Sustainability can only come from diversity. And for us, we have, as part of our rich biodiversity, hundreds, or perhaps has been pointed out, close to thousands of lesser known and underutilized traditional crops and wild food plants of great horticultural, nutritional, and environmental significance. Some of them are forest resources that play a major role in carbon sequestration and are critical to reversing the adverse effects of climate change. we must not be deterred in drawing attention to our lesser known indigenous African crops, even though it may not be as academically productive in the short term as working with conventional crops. Indeed, just over a week ago, an opportunity at drawing attention to these lesser known crops and underutilized crops was missed because of lack of knowledge. To the uninformed, research on these lesser known crops and wild food plants that are often the richest and cheapest sources of essential nutrients, especially to the rural populace, and are available at certain critical periods when other sources of foods are unavailable, and are adapted to harsh growing conditions and grow without the need for fertilizers, pesticides, and other inputs, is of little consequence given their low economic value. But the rural populace are very much aware of the health-promoting benefits of our traditional fruits and vegetables. Many of them, such as bitter leaf or ewuro, Yoruba, or kazi in Igbo, efinrin, Yoruba, baobab leaf or kuka in Hausa, etc., are used in traditional medicine, and their critical roles in the management of diet-related non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, and cardiovascular diseases are now being recognized and acknowledged by the scientific world. They are, as has been pointed out, functional foods and important components of traditional African diets with immune-boosting properties and are rich in plant bioactives with antioxidant and enzyme-inhibiting properties, and are sequestered of bind potentially toxic constituents and act as scavengers, protecting against cancer and neurodegenerative diseases. We don't know yet. Professor Adeyemi alluded to it. But I am convinced that when ultimately, as scientists, and we get there, the full story about COVID-19 is told, then the critical role that our traditional diets have played in protecting us from this scourge will be apparent. Right now, there is no real scientific basis for it. But just reflecting on our situation and reflecting on what is happening in other parts of the world should convince us that there is something in this traditional diet. And if we go by what we know already in science, then really they must be playing a critical role in the fact that we are spared the most damaging effects of this scourge. Indeed, some of these lesser known vegetables are now being referred to as super vegetables on account of their nutritional value, chemotherapeutic and health promoting properties, and other unique qualities. So if we are going to take anything out of this symposium, I want to plead with us to go back to our traditional diet. Don't play with ugu. Don't play with ewuro. Don't play with tete. Don't play with shoko and the rest of them. These commodities are loaded in health promoting components. Clearly, our work that has been published have shown that even if it comes to the nutrients that we know, if you read the foreword to my book, written by one of my professors in Cornell, he has passed on now, Emeritus Professor Malcolm Bond, he actually encouraged me positively to work on that book, because we know the challenges that we face here in publishing. And I must acknowledge TechFund for the support that they gave in publishing that book. We know for sure that when it comes to vitamin C, that we are all taking. I take it. I've been taking it before, but now I've increased the dose to 1,000 milligrams every day. And anybody who knows the history of the Nobel Prize will know that one of the early Nobel laureates, even though not proven dead, made the case that this is, I'm talking about maybe about 1900, whether part of it be correct, made the case he was taking, as at that time, 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day. And at Cornell, we were taught that the daily requirement for vitamin C, and we know, is only 60 milligrams. It is water soluble. If you take, they say if you take more than 60 milligrams, you are just wasting it. It will pass out in the urine. Because we saw it only in terms of scurvy and the rest of it. But we now know that it has properties beyond just scurvy. Okay? But as far back as 1900, he knew it, and he was taking 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day, which is now what all of us are now taking because of COVID. Okay? But orange juice will give you 60 milligrams for every 100 meals. But baobab seed powder contains 300 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams, 5 times of orange juice. Ugu much higher, about 129. These are things that we know, that we have reported. So those are the ones that we know. So really, these traditional vegetables, lesser known, are God's gifts to us. And we must continue to draw attention to them to promote their utilization. Of course, Professor Aworh, you are going to give a talk on this, because I know that with Italy, he has been able to actually identify the actual chemical, well, not the actual, the one of the active chemical components. So we know a lot now, but there is still a lot that we don't know at all. But if anything, like I said, from COVID-19, is telling us, look inwards. Look inwards. God has blessed us with many of these things. Finally, I'm glad that the African Journal of Food, Agriculture, Nutrition and Development, AFJANT, published by Honorable Professor Ruth Onyango, has shown an interest in this symposium. She has requested that the papers be sent to her. My greatest joy is that there is a critical mass of knowledgeable, gifted, hardworking, dedicated researchers that will take this work further for the benefit of food and nutrition security in this part of the world. There is no greater honor, no greater legacy, and no better prize than this assurance as I retire. By the grace of God, I will continue to advance this noble cause even in retirement. And finally, I wish to express my profound gratitude to my most cherished mentees and the Department of Food Technology for organizing this valedictory symposium in my honor, and to the erudite keynotes and session speakers for their inspiring and thought-provoking and scholarly presentations. When a former Vice Chancellor agreed to come and give a keynote speech in your honor, keynote address in your honor, it tells quite a lot. So, Bio, I'm very, very grateful. Well, Kechi, you interviewed me for a position, so if you didn't say I should become George Kumanterios Professor, you I will not give it. Thank you for always being there. God is only, you're always a source of pride. God will continue to uplift you guys. And to all those who have found the time to attend out of their very, very busy schedule. And again for the likes of Professor Lucas, Baba Fadide, Baba Sulu and the rest. These are people, Baba Fadide and Baba Sulu in their 90s. Why would they leave their home to come here? I'm really, really immensely grateful. To Vish Prakash, the President of the International Union of Food Science and Technology, I thank you very much for your kind words. Conrad Pereira in New Zealand, only God knows what time it will be now, probably close to 3 a.m. But he stayed on, and many others in the diaspora. I'm extremely grateful. It is wonderful to be so acknowledged, and I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. Thank you very much.
I want to call on the representative of the Vice Chancellor.
Well, this will just be a closing remark, and the summary of the previous presentations have been given. I think these words keep coming and coming and coming, and it's probably a prophecy. They've all said your best is yet to come. So this is just a valedictory symposium for your formal service. The informal services will continue. So God bless you. Thank you. HOD.
Thank you, sir. I don't think we did any other foot of that. That the Celebrant have done justice to that. On this note, I just want to do as I directed to acknowledge some people, most especially our able Vice Chancellor, Professor Aworh, who is here represented by our own provost, Professor Thank you for coming. We want to thank the register ably represented, the representative of this great matter for us. Our today's keynote speaker, the erudite Professor Ademi, our two speakers, Professor I.A. Sonny and Professor K.A. Taiwo, we thank you for honoring our invitation. The Dean of Faculty of Technology and other deans here present, Head of Departments and directors of the institute, we thank you all for honoring us. The representative of the flour mill, thank you for coming. The representative of the TechFund Executive Secretary, we really thank you, sir. We came here around late in the night yesterday because of delay in flight from Abuja. So thank you. We have numerous dignitaries online that we still want to start with, so we will not be able to live here. So we want to thank them too for honoring our invitation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Our students, they are blessed, and other students of the department, the organizing committee, we thank you for a good job done. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. Anthem. Do I anthem followed by national anthem?